Today is another market update episode, which I'm very much so enjoying. Hopefully, you guys are as well. Today, we're going to talk about a couple things. First of all, the Rocket Mortgage and BRX partnership, what that means, why they're doing it, what are some unique benefits. We're also going to talk about CMLS and Nesto, how Nesto actually just bought CMLS. So, a brokerage bought a lender, what that means, and what are the tech implications of that, which again, there are some which I think are nuanced and maybe missed. So, definitely want to check that out. And then finally, talked about some new features and really new trends we're seeing in some of these submission platforms. Velocity is what we're going to talk about today, one of their newest features. Pretty interesting, but I think it also speaks to a larger trend going on in the industry. So you're going to want to check that out. So tune in and hope you enjoy. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Mortgage Tech Talks. I'm in the office today, so I get to use my fancy new microphone, which I hope is coming through loud and clear for everyone out there. I heard one comment actually from someone who said, "Yeah, it's it's much better sounding, so that's good." Someone said no difference, so I don't know who to believe. Maybe I'll choose to believe the first one. Welcome back. We're gonna do another episode like we did last week. Heard some good feedback with it, made more so market updates, and so let's get right into it here. I think there's some cool things to chat about. Last week we talked a little bit about the Neo DLC partnership, which I thought was interesting, a good discussion. And, some people reached out and said, okay, well, there's a lot more of that going on. And we did some digging, and sure enough, it is. So, what I'm talking about right now is Rocket Mortgage coming in to the broker market. Of course, they were kind of a direct to consumer brokerage initially. That was with Edison Financial, it was called. It rebranded to Rocket Canada. Now it's coming with a lending product to the space, and it's going through I'm sure as it was a brokerage, it was offering some lending products of its own for the deals that it brokered itself. Now it's trying to expand beyond just its own brokerage. It's trying to go to other brokerages and expand its reach. And so the first place it's going is with BRX. This is Scott Peckford's group brokerage that he has. It's a national brokerage. It is a tech powered, I would say, brokerage, and that he has a lot of resources. It's much more kind of that type of model where, learning modules and different things like that to really kind of get you up and running super quick. So without getting into that model specifically, I thought this was an interesting one. Interesting for a couple of reasons. The last one we talked about was the Neo DLC. And yeah, that was cool. The BRX one is one of the first ones we've seen where it's actually not a network. It's a brokerage. Now it's getting pretty big. It's getting maybe to that network level. Maybe that's a sign of things to come. BRX is maybe going that way towards a network, but that's one interesting thing. And then the other interesting thing, and this is more where the tech comes in, is that how it's all working together. Now, as probably a lot of people know out there, that Rocket Mortgage, owned by Rocket in the US, which is a massive, massive company, one of the biggest originators in the US, if not the biggest, actually bought Lendesk many years ago, and then Lendesk after that bought Finmo. And so how this all comes together is that in order for these BRX brokers who have this relationship to actually get access to the Rocket Mortgage lender, they have to do it through Finmo. It seems to make sense. And again, we talked about this last week. That's a lot of the value now more and more these POS, Finmos, velocities are providing, which is actually exclusive access to specific lenders. So that's cool. I chatted with one broker who I was like, "Are you using this? How's this going?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm using it a bit." I mean, for him at least, this one person I talked to, it wasn't so much, unique products or anything like that. It was, being able to have a combination of both the tech and the lender kind of working together. So I thought that was a cool take actually, in that I was kind of maybe a bit skeptical last week saying, hey, all these tech companies, all they're doing now is just giving you exclusive access to the lender. But in this case, they're actually doing more. They're saying, okay, yes, you can access the lender, but we're going to be smart about it. It's just not every other lender because we have this very unique partnership with this lender. They're going to do some stuff for us. And so what I'm getting at with this, with the Finmo and the BRX and the Rocket, how it all works is that yes, the BRX broker has to then go through Finmo to submit and get access to it. But if their documents are being collected or at least stored in Finmo, then because of the relationship, Rocket Mortgage can then directly access those. So you're not then downloading it and emailing it over or uploading it to some secure portal. The tool that you're actually using to write the deal, to collect the docs, do all those things is then speaking right to the lender. And so, Velocity started doing some of this stuff with direct document submission. Maybe we'll chat about that next week. But this was kind of a cool take on it to say, okay, it's not just the access. It's yes, we have access, and actually we've negotiated for the lender to have, unique access or maybe do a little bit more for us. So just that much more convenient for the broker. So it's it's kind of a cool spin there. So let's keep going. That was topic number one. Topic number two, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about is the Nesto acquisition of CMLS. So this was another pretty big headline. We've seemed to be having a couple of those over the past couple of weeks. So that's great. So for those of you who missed it, Nesto, which is a quote unquote direct to consumer online digital powered brokerage. We've heard a lot of these types of brokerages in the past. Rocket, we just talked about those. Edison Financial started out as that. They're expanding into lending now. There's Pine. There's others that I'm probably blanking on right now. And so Nesto seems to be doing the same thing. That this actually isn't their first foray into lending. Well, at the very least, I know that they actually acquired in December, I think, of last year, Canada Life's mortgage book of business. So they took over and they didn't want to be in the mortgage market anymore. That's Canada Life. They did a little bit of mortgages. And so Nesto acquired that. And so now they have gone out and acquired another book of business that's being CMLS's. So they're kind of bringing it together. It's an interesting situation where, I don't think it's any secret to anyone out there that the market's a little bit choppy. And so to say, okay, I'm actually going to go out and I'm going to get, obviously this book of business with Canada Life and now this other one, I think it just creates an interesting dynamic. Maybe they're backers who are Power Corp, which are probably the people who have some of the most money in Canada right now, are seeing an opportunity to maybe pick up some of these corporations, these books of business at a discount. I don't actually know the details. They weren't published. But big part of this here, at least it could be, is the fact that now with mortgages that we did ourselves and maybe part of Canada Life's book, and now the CMLS acquisition, they had over 60 billion in mortgages. So it's a pretty big book. But this is what I thought was interesting is that not only did they get that book, but they also got their subsidiary, Intellifi, which is a tech company. Intellifi is used by lenders to help them write their own mortgages. They have, I think, 4 categories. They have residential software, residential services, commercial software, commercial services. And so all that is now under Nesto, of course, as well. So not only are you getting the book of business, but you're also getting this tech platform that can be used by lenders. Now, Nesto tried to take their platform. So again, they were originally a brokerage. They have an underwriting tool that works really well. And they originally tried to give it to other financial institutions, say, hey, we have this really cool tool. You should use it as well. Nesto Mortgage Cloud. So they had this mortgage cloud, basically is what I just described it. It was this tool they used for themselves internally, and then they tried selling it to lenders. And I actually don't know how that went, but I just thought it's interesting. I'm kind of guessing maybe it didn't go as well as they thought it would. I don't know. I'm just speculating completely here because if that Intellifi is a big piece of it, it's telling me that, hey, maybe the mortgage cloud software wasn't as good, maybe just from a feature perspective or maybe just an adoption perspective. And of course, lenders, they aren't the quickest of movers. I know Intellifi is used by a lot of lenders out there. If you can go on their website, there's a whole bunch. I think Scotia's brand is on there. I don't think it's all their mortgages, but I think they use it for a piece of it. I saw National Bank on there. I saw some other ones. Intellifi has both the software, so the features and having that pretty mature, but then also just the reach. And so maybe that's part of it. And maybe over time, they're going to say, okay, well, the Intellifi platform is actually going to morph into the Nesto Mortgage Cloud platform, and we're going to triple the prices. That's a play we've seen tech companies do before, and honestly with a bit of success. Because again, for then the lender to say, well, I don't want to pay triple the prices, I want to switch to something else. That's an expensive endeavor. Some people just end up taking it. So we'll see how that plays out, how it actually affects the broker market. I don't think it does too much other than now just the Nesto is a more competitive direct to consumer player out there. But again, I think for a lot of brokers, they don't compete too much directly with Nesto. That's only if they're competing on rate. And most, I think, brokers that I know and I work with, they're much more on the referral based side. And I think that, again, it maybe just more solidifies that to say, hey, do you know what? That's really the place to play as a broker. Lean into your personal relationships, referrals, partnerships, that sort of good stuff. All right, story number 3, the last thing that I'm going to chat about today. Yeah, I think that it's a good place to wrap it up. Bit more specific, and I think this is a cool one for people out there. This came across my LinkedIn newsfeed today. So yeah, for those of you who are listening and can't see my screen, basically what I'm showing is that it's a post by Axess Law. So Axess Law is a law group. I think they're in Ontario. I can't be certain, but they're always at all the trade shows. I see them around. And what they've done is they've announced a partnership with Newton Velocity so that, hey, right from the Velocity platform, it's very easy to basically share documents. That's the main thing that it does. So if I'm in Velocity, I'm collecting documents, I'm doing these things that I've always done for every mortgage file that I'm on. And then I decide to, hey, I actually want to use Axess Law as my solicitor to help close this file. There's a full platform in there to say, okay, well, I'm going to connect to Axess Law. It's an option in a drop down now. You can click that, and then you can basically upload your docs, click submit, and that'll actually securely transfer that document to Axess Law. And there's kind of this opportunity to go back and forth there. So it's a cool thing. Honestly, it's not the first law firm that Velocity's partnership. Adding to the list now, I have it up here. I was just looking at it. I have my own Velocity account here, so I was just kind of digging through and seeing it. So they had Spagnuolo and Company. That's, I think, BC specifically. Diamond and Diamond. That's a big brand. I've seen it here in Toronto many times. Deeded, which is, I know Reuven very well. I actually had the podcast with him just 2 weeks ago. So his practice there. And then finally, Axess Law. So this seems to be the fourth one here. Seems like they're building that out. Honestly, us at Blue, we've gotten requests like that. We've been a little bit maybe more gun shy just to understand, okay, do our clients actually use this? Is this something that is really demanded in the industry? But honestly, looking at this, it seems more and more it is. So I just thought that was interesting to bring it all back to the first story. I think first and foremost, it does allow you to secure those documents, transfer those documents securely. I think it's a bit of a bet to make. I mean, I think it depends on the regulator, but I think the sad truth maybe is that every time you put a document in an email, whether it's to a lender or whether it's to a lawyer, that is the most vulnerable place. And so, is there a future in which the regulator starts to come in and say, hey, none of that? You can't send a document over email. It has to be through secure portals. If that's the case, then both the thing I talked about Rocket and Finmo, that becomes insanely more valuable. But then so do these types of tools. And so is that a bet that these products are making that, hey, we're going to get more crackdown in terms of document transfer? Maybe. And I think it's something to think about at least. I mean, the trend over time has always been more regulation, not less. And emails are not secure. So that's an interesting thing there. But then I think also in general, I think it is another data point, I guess, into the rise of these more digitally based closing packages. There's My Closings too, which is another one which wasn't on the list I just mentioned, but it is one that we've chatted to at least. I think it comes back to, I think I was talking about this last week, is very much so like on the broker side, the people who kind of top tech are going to consolidate. I could see that on the legal side as well. Because again, if something like I just described comes through, it's not just the brokers that are going to have to change the way they're transferring documents. It's going to be law firms as well, right? So if you normally just email some documents to your local law firm, can't do that anymore. You're going to have to adjust, but so are they, right? And so if you really got to close a document, you're going to wait for that local law firm to adjust, or are you just going to go to one of these here, maybe a Deeded, maybe an Axess Law, maybe a Diamond that already has that all set up. You're probably going to do A until at least your local firm gets some sort of digital capability up and running. And so, yeah, I think with the added regulation that might come, we'll see these types of more online based digital national law firms are going to become more and more popular. And that's just one example, but we are seeing them a lot more for a variety of reasons. So just wanted to leave it at that one. So that about wraps it up this week. Thank you so much for listening. Again, this is a new format that I'm doing, which is more of like a market update. If it's interesting at all to you guys, please do kind of comment or whatever. Email me if some of you guys have my email, or I don't know, just get in touch with me somehow to tell me that this is a good format. We always appreciate the feedback. Or if it's a terrible format, let me know. So thanks so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you next week.